Hello and welcome to Money Matters TV. My name is Mike Verrill. I'm a VP of Strategic Development with the Sharp Financial Group. We help private business owners build better businesses, maximize value in a sale, and manage the results in the back end. We do that with a unique integrated financial management process combining accounting and tax, business advisory, wealth management, and capital solutions. Thank you for joining us for a continuing discussion on our segment called Growth Stories, where we hear from entrepreneurs and advisors who share secrets and advice on what business owners need to know to grow. From time to time, issues involving life sciences, healthcare, and technology companies may be discussed on this show. Those discussions are not and should not be viewed as financial advice. Moreover, since the program is pre-recorded and shown at a later date, some of those discussions may no longer be relevant. It is always good to seek advice from your financial advisor before entering into any financial transaction. I'm joined today by my co-host Rija Beares, VP with CBRE, a global real estate firm. Rija has spent more than 15 years providing research and consulting to corporate occupiers of space. Rija also heads up the technology and media practices in the Philadelphia office, where she works with high-growth companies to develop real estate strategies to support their business objectives. She also serves on the program development and outreach committees for Tech Girls, an organization that helps expose middle school age girls to careers in technology. Rija, hello, great to see you again. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So it's been a little while since we've seen each other last. Do you have a couple projects that have been keeping you busy lately that you could share?
Sure. I'm working on a couple right now where we are evaluating several different labor markets in the U.S. It's technology companies combined with financial services or healthcare. So we're looking at them from the perspective of getting labor, being able to get the viable real estate, and then on top of that, incentives, economic incentives, and what each city can offer to us.
So where each of those three components marry up the best and create the most efficient and cost-effective opportunity for the company?
That's exactly right, and the ability to grow.
Are you seeing trends anywhere? Is it focused on the Northeast, Midwest? Is there any particular areas where you're seeing more stand out than others?
It depends on the industry, but from the technology standpoint, one of the markets that continues to grow and is a little bit of surprise from the past couple of years is Salt Lake City.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that's been interesting.
Yeah, I have a client that just opened an office in Salt Lake, then the construction management business, and they do high tech development.
It
and
makes sense.
It's been exploding in Salt Lake, so that's interesting. Yeah, and we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Before we introduce our guest, we have a question from one of our viewers.
Okay.
Nick Moran from Philadelphia wants to know, are the commercial rental rates in real estate, are they at their peak? Where do you see that based on your market experience?
That's a good question. So it varies is the short answer. In some of the areas that are high demand and new construction is really driving those areas because the supply is light, those rental rates continue to rise, as do the construction costs. So it's a direct correlation between those construction costs and then the rental rates. In some of the markets where you don't see a lot of redevelopment or new development, the rents probably have kind of hit their peak, and they're not dropping, but they're at that equilibrium state. Okay. But I'd say on a whole, it still continues to go up and trend up.
How about between like trophy space, Class A and Class B? Is there a wide range in rates at this point, or is you starting to see a little bit of a compression?
Yeah, there's really not a compression. So that flight to quality happened kind of 5 to 7 years ago, and now you're seeing people really seek out the best real estate that they can sort of afford within their budget, because talent is really driving all of these conversations, is the ability to bring in good talent and retain them.
Gotcha. And so talent is a function of how well you can build space around people that get them engaged and enjoying coming to the office to work.
That's right.
Yeah, cool. Great. Yeah. Well, hopefully, Nick, that answered your question. It's always great to hear from our viewers. For a future episode, here's how to send your questions to Money Matters TV.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says Send Us Your Questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters,
We have a very interesting story for you today. An entrepreneur who's going to take us on a journey from a 600-person town in Indiana to a Northeast boarding school to China and back to a burgeoning neighborhood in Philadelphia. Today we have as our guest Sterling Wilson. Sterling is the president of Pop Promos and managing partner of the Harbison Dairy Project. Sterling, it's great to have you with us. Thank you for joining us on our segment called Growth Stories. Rhea and I are very happy to have you. Before we get into the conversation, we'd love to have you give us maybe a little overview of Pop Promos and also maybe talk a little bit about the Harbison Dairy Project as well.
Sure, be happy to do that. Hello, and thanks for having me, both of you. Really appreciate it. Pop Promos is a leading manufacturer of branded merchandise in the United States and Canada. We work with companies big and small to design and then manufacture products that exactly meet their brand guidelines, including being Pantone matched to their brand's exact colors, as well as putting their logo not only on the product but all over customized packaging to create a finished product that has their brand directly in the DNA of the product. We've been in business about 7 years, and we have recently outgrown our current office space in Northern Liberties, Philadelphia. And I've been looking for a new space. The Harbison Dairy building is a dairy complex in Fishtown. It's a neighborhood called Kensington in Philadelphia. It's actually built at the turn of the 19th century and produced milk and ice cream that people in Philadelphia and the surrounding area have enjoyed for over 100 years. It's an iconic building. It's got a milk bottle actually coming out of the top of it, about 114 feet in the air. And it's a nationally registered historic building. We're really excited. Purchased it last month, and we'll be redeveloping it into a mixed-use project. So we'll have apartments, retail, a cafe, as well as a new global headquarters for Pop Promos to move into. Should be complete next summer.
Wow, that's great. That's that must be an interesting project, especially with historical component and dealing with all of those requirements.
You have lots of
Creates
compliance.
additional challenges, but ultimately you get a product that really has authenticity and has a soul in it. There's a lot of new construction, and most of it is beautifully done, but some people want a feeling of history, a sense of place, and renovating a historic building can really give you that if you do it well.
Right, well, that's fantastic. Good luck with that project.
Thank you.
So from this high-end and historic redevelopment, and you guys work with 300 of the Fortune 5, how did you start out? You didn't start at this level, so tell us a little bit about where you started in life.
So I'm from a small town in Indiana called Cicero. It's about 600 people on a lake 50 miles north of Indianapolis.
Okay.
It was me, my little brother Spencer, who's 4.5 years younger than me, and our dog Winston, who I got when I was 5 years old at Christmas. He was under the tree, cute black lab puppy with a big red bow on his head.
Unbelievable.
So it was the 5 of us running around out in rural Indiana, which is very different from here in the studio in Philadelphia.
Exactly. What were some of the things that you did in Cicero, Indiana, to keep busy?
It was a beautiful place to grow up. It was very felt fortunate to have so much space. So would go out canoeing. Would go out in the afternoons and come back when we heard the dinner bell. A lot of fishing, biking, cross town into the town. There wasn't a stoplight, but there were stop signs and an ice cream parlor, which was exciting. But spent a lot of time outside, a lot of time playing with my siblings, and just kind of being wild and maybe a little undisciplined.
Right. That's great.
That is great. So, just tell us kind of how you made the move out of Cicero and what happened next.
Sure. So the story starts in Sunday school when I was like 4 years old.
Okay.
They put, while our parents were in mass, they put the kids downstairs in the classrooms and said, we're going to talk about
somewhere where they couldn't hear them.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's partly babysitting, but partly
Right.
some sort of biblical education.
Yeah.
And I think everyone else was content to draw pictures of the cross and Jesus and their family holding hands, and I was maybe a a little bit of the difficult child in class, and I kept asking all these questions. And the one that really stuck out was, if God is all powerful and all good, then why did my grandfather die?
Right.
And the priest, when he heard about this, was first like, oh my goodness, how do we deal with such a difficult kid? But he pulled me aside and actually talked with me a little more, and went to my parents and said, look, you got a precocious kid. He's got a lot of energy. I'm trying to find some way to channel that might be really productive. And he recommended a school. It's an Episcopalian school in downtown Indianapolis, which was 50 miles from my house, and recommended my parents that I should apply, and if they had the means to get me there every day, that it would be a good experience for me. And my parents, to their everlasting credit, took them up on that and drove me down there and took me on a tour, and I did whatever the entrance test is for 4-year-olds.
Right. Right.
Apparently I was okay at blocks, but bad at dinosaurs. You know.
And it's haunted you ever since,
yeah,
right?
Well, you know, they admitted me based on whatever criteria they used for that, and ended up going to school downtown and being the gym coach. We arranged a carpool, so I was actually drove with the gym coach to school at 5 o'clock in the morning every day, 50 miles there and 50 miles back. So it was a
So that's
journey,
quite a commitment, both on your end. I mean, 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 years old, it's not exactly when 5-year-olds, or unless they're up bugging their parents, are getting ready to go to school, you know?
It was quite a commitment for my parents to make on my behalf. It was.
Yeah, right. You just went along for the ride, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's a neat experience. So how long did you go to that school?
So I went to St. Richard's School for 10 years, from pre-kindergarten through 8th grade.
Okay.
And then I took the SSAT, the high school entrance test, and checked the box that said, I'll accept solicitations. And apparently did well on the math portion of it, and started getting invitations to apply to schools all over the country, including some boarding schools on the East Coast.
Wow.
I just read the Harry Potter books, maybe those, you remember them. And I started looking at these pictures of these schools with the Gothic buildings, and I said, Mom, Dad, getting invited to go to Hogwarts.
Exactly.
What do you think? And they said, well, you should write your applications and see. And I got out my number 2 pencil, started writing my applications. I think they thought it was funny.
Right.
It was entertaining. Like, this is great. But
that's sterling.
But I mailed them off and started getting invitations to go interview. And so my parents were a little shocked and a little nervous, but organized. And my mom took me out east, and we rented a car and drove and visited maybe half a dozen schools and interviewed at them. Ended up going to Kent School in Connecticut, which was... So
were your parents originally from in and around Cicero? Had they really...
From Indiana.
Okay.
It's a different part of the state, but both from
Indiana.
But
so hadn't really spent time on the East Coast or anywhere outside of Indiana?
No. The concept of going to boarding school was completely...
Yeah, so how did they... What was the... just... All right, Sterling, well, if this is what you really want to do, or give us a little insight there, how that conversation went.
I think they were very apprehensive, but we went out and saw the schools, and coming from a small town, the schools where I grew up are good, but some of the opportunities for education at these boarding schools are exceptional. They're recruiting college professors, they offer academic scholarships to hundreds of kids from all over the world, it's international. And by the time my mom and I got back from the trip, my mom looked at my dad and said, if he can go to this school, like, he should definitely go.
Yeah.
He's got to get a great education.
Right.
I think
my mom was all in, and I have to give her a lot of credit for that.
That's awesome. That's great that she saw that opportunity for you.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Obviously a trait I would think of an entrepreneur as a risk taker. So you check that box, right? The risk taker piece like that. So give us a little insight into high school. What did you, and how did that portion of kind of your development years go? Like, was there anything in particular that stands out? Or?
Yeah, so I was recruited to these schools because of my math scores. So there was this concept, the day I showed up, the math teacher was my advisor, I was on the mathletes. They had decided that was the direction that I was going in, and I didn't like that at all. I showed up as a kid from Indiana. I was wearing jeans. There's men in pink pants, and everyone's wearing khakis. And I'm looking around, what on earth? Where am I? It was culture shock. But made a few friends, and my roommate was from Korea, and big ping pong. There's a big Korean contingency, and all ping pong players. Okay. So I fell in love with ping pong my freshman year, and quit the mathletes and joined the basketball team, and kind of found my place over time. I still love playing ping pong, but over time found my place and ended up participating in athletics. I played football and basketball and lacrosse.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of made a home for myself out there. By the end, I felt less out of place than I did on my first day of school.
Right.
I
I'd
bet.
say that for sure.
I bet.
But I mean, that's quite a transition, right? And a good solid base to really explore.
Yeah.
You know, a lot, like you said, someone like roommate from Korea, international influence, everything. Like, so got you an opportunity to be a little bit more worldly than maybe if you'd gone to school in Indiana.
I think that's right. I think it gives you a broader perspective on the world. Just being surrounded by people. I had classmates at Kent from probably 70 countries.
Wow. That's
And
incredible.
so just hearing different perspectives about everything, food, politics,
yeah.
school.
Yeah, just
Life.
exposure.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
exposure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. So you had that great experience there, and then you were off to college. How did you decide where to go? What was your experience there?
Yeah, so I was looking at where I might want to go to school and applied to over a dozen schools. Some I was recruited to play basketball at,
Okay.
but didn't want to go to a small school, and that was really what was on offer for me. And decided eventually to go to USC. The weather and the sunshine and the beach was just an unbeatable combination. And
Yeah,
there was
it's
no way I was passing it up after I went to visit.
After spending 4 years in the Northeast, right? It's time for some
So
sunshine.
February in Connecticut, when that decision comes due, nothing sounds better than Los Angeles. I have to say.
USC
Yeah.
just won out on that alone, right?
Exactly.
exactly right.
Easy.
So what did you want to study when you went to USC? With the
So I wanted to study architecture.
okay,
I was absolutely terrible at it. At the end of my first semester taking architecture classes, my advisor pulled me aside and said, "How badly do you want to be an architect?" I said, "I think I want to be one." He said, "Have you thought about anything else?" I said, "Not really." He goes, "You might, because you lack ability."
right,
That's
right.
really
Might be a
cut to
good
the heart of the
sign.
matter,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So I studied business and
Okay.
ended up really enjoying it and getting a lot out of it. So
That's great.
So when we talked before, you told us a little bit about the experience at USC, and you got to a point in your junior year where you felt like you kind of needed a break, maybe burned out from studying and
Yeah.
being broke. I think you mentioned, poor college student, right? And some of your friends were going off to expensive internships in the cultural studies over abroad and things like that.
yeah, so no offense to anyone who works at a university in the audience, but there's a racket in the United States called study abroad, and it's a great opportunity to go see another place, and I'm all for that. But the concept that you get charged U.S. tuition rates, right, and housing rates, but go to these countries where a year of college is $1,600,
Right.
Right.
full tuition, and then the classes are not even necessarily taught in English, and people skip them and go travel. It sounds fantastic, but there's absolutely, financially, it's insane.
Right.
And as a
Yeah.
college student trying to figure out how to make my way in the world financially, I just looked at it and thought it was nuts.
Right.
Especially your business background now, right? When you're
Yeah,
studying the
exactly.
financial modeling, and it's hard to make
It didn't
the
make
numbers
any
match.
sense. So, I read the newspaper every day in college. My dad got me a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. When I went to school, I said, "What on earth is this for?" He said, "Just read it. Hopefully something good comes out of it."
Something will sink
Catch
in.
you somewhere.
And every day, between 2008 and 2012, China was on the front page of the newspaper. China this, China that. The headlines were slightly more positive than they are today, frankly, but it was in the news constantly. And I thought to myself, I really would like to go see this place for myself and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
So towards the middle of my junior year, I decided to take a leave of absence from USC. Went to the alumni office and said, I want a job in China. They said, we don't have a jobs office in China. I don't know what to tell you. I said, can you get me a list of the alumni, the alumni directory of USC alums who are in China and own their own businesses? And to their credit, they gave me a list, and it was 100 names long. And I got on and just started,
Wow.
I picked up the phone and just started dialing one by one. And ended up getting a couple of interviews and got hired over Skype by a company that manufactured generic pharmaceuticals based out of Shanghai and shipped them all over the world.
They must have loved that story. A USC student calls them on the USC Alumni Network and wants to explore an opportunity in China. That's pretty cool. It's
it's
That's
unbelievable.
not an everyday thing, right?
No.
So
Risk taker, ingenuity. I think you're really developing your entrepreneurial skill set here.
if you get a list of 100 people and you're willing to call all of them, the odds that you don't have an internship by the time you get to name 100 are really, really slim.
Right,
I gotta
right.
say.
And I'm sure that they'll get a call from the development office as to why they kept turning down the USC student who was looking for an
Right,
internship.
exactly.
I think that's probably right. But it was a good experience. So I actually moved to China. I didn't speak Mandarin. I didn't know anyone there. I took a one-way ticket and flew to Shanghai and figured it out. Started studying Mandarin, rented an apartment, started tutoring English after work to make extra money, and worked traveling around China, organizing logistics to move pharmaceutical products out of China into the rest of the world.
Wow.
Really fascinating job.
Most definitely. The regulatory surrounding that alone
Very, very
is
interesting.
challenging.
I got very good at filling out paperwork.
I bet you did.
Yeah, which has
Yeah.
come in handy, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Find out
everything
later
else you
on,
have to
yeah.
do in life, right?
Yeah. Well, when you told your parents, they must have just said, "Oh, of course, Sterling." You know, at that point, were they even questioning that you were going to China to work for a semester?
They asked why, and then
Right.
I think I gave them some sort of answer. Probably it's in the newspaper every day. I want to go see it for myself and check it out. And they were okay with it, which is,
Yeah.
I think slowly I'd worn them down over the prior
Right.
I'm
6 years
thinking,
or
and your
so.
father
Plus you throw it
provided
on-
the Wall Street
Yeah,
Journal. He's
right,
the one.
exactly.
He was the catalyst.
It came from you, Dad,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
definitely
learned
throw
it
that
from
on
you.
Dad, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Flip the switch.
So you have all this phenomenal experience in China, and then you're coming back. You got to finish up school, and so what's next after that experience?
Yeah, so decided to move back and finish school. I just wanted, it would be very important to my parents to get my college degree.
Sure.
Right.
And also, I think it's a little lonely living an expat life in China.
Yeah.
Just your friends come for a few years and leave. I think it's a little
Right.
lonely. So I wanted to come back and be closer to my family and my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So went back to school and had a year to finish. And unfortunately came back and realized that by the time I paid my first, last, and security deposit on my apartment and bought my textbooks, I was completely broke. I just had absolutely no money. And I was trying to figure out what on earth I was going to do. And I started looking at getting a job, maybe dialing for dollars at an insurance broker or something like that, and was actually a little bit depressed about the whole thing. Went to the first football game of the year at USC, and it's a happy occasion. If you ever get the chance to go to a Trojan football game, it's great. There's 100,000 fans
Wow.
all over campus, all decked out in Trojan gear, barbecuing, drinking beer,
Yeah.
just enjoying themselves before the game got started. And I look, and there's 100,000 people, and everyone has the hats and the coolers and the koozies and the jerseys, has all USC gear, and no one had sunglasses.
And it's sunny. It's LA.
And we're in sunny Southern California.
Right.
So that night after the game, I got on Skype and I called every single person I knew in China saying, "Can you introduce me to a sunglasses factory?" And it turned out that my roommate's cousin had bought and
Okay.
renovated a sunglass factory
No
and
kidding.
put us in touch.
Wow.
My girlfriend at the time got on Photoshop and designed glasses. They just said Game Day on the sides, in cardinal and gold. I borrowed some money from my roommate and I bought 2,000 pairs. When they shipped into the country a few weeks later, they're actually held at customs. And I get a call, "Hi, this is Susan from the Food and Drug Administration." What? Yeah, it says here on the bill of lading that you're importing sunglasses into the United States. You know that this is a medical device and you need to be in a federally accredited facility to bring them in. I said, "Oh no," but all that paperwork I filled out came in handy. I said, "Can you tell me the requirements for a federally accredited medical device import facility?" And she said, "Absolutely, I can tell you that. Let me forward it to your email." So I got it and I read through it, and there's actually, the list of requirements is flexible, right? So I started filling out the paperwork, and my dorm room became a federally accredited medical device repackaging facility.
Probably is today. Hopefully, the kid living there now knows it.
You have to renew it every year, so I
Okay, all right.
so
So
I
it
doubt
lapsed.
it.
You let it lapse.
But pretty funny, right? I told my parents, and they're like,
Full
"Do you have
circle.
lab coats?" I said, "No."
No, but you can buy me one.
Exactly. So brought them into the country and sold out of them in 3 days. And for
Wow.
$10 a piece, it was more money than I'd ever seen in my entire life.
Wow,
So
that's incredible.
thought maybe there's a business here. Started calling all my friends from Kent who had kind of spread across the United States and telling them what I'd just done and wholesaling them and then rolling them out to other schools up and down the coast of California, and called my best friend from high school, a woman named Erin Riley, who's the CEO of Pop Promos. She sat right next to me in AP Modern European History class, sophomore year of high school. And we were close friends, and I'd always had so much respect for her. She was a top student at Johns Hopkins and
that's
president
great.
of the student council and the alumni association, just very organized and in charge. And we partnered up and started selling them, her from Baltimore and me from Los Angeles,
Wow.
and built the business literally one order of sunglasses at a time. So
That is fantastic.
And so originally, you were the wholesale end of it, and you had friends or whomever at other schools buying them and selling them
Yeah.
retail. How do you transition that into where you are today?
So the one clever thing we did, and the biggest testament to having a brand, is even the very first pair, I wanted to put something so people knew they were my sunglasses. And so I put just wrote college glasses on the inside of them. It was a fitting name. I was a kid selling sunglasses to colleges, made sense. But even the very first 2,000 pairs that went out, and I started wholesaling them, by the end of the first year we'd sold 100,000+ pairs of sunglasses, and they're all in circulation. They also say college glasses. So I bought the URL, and there's all this traffic coming to it. I set up a website, said click here for inquiries, and the next thing you know, we have departments at universities wanting to buy them. You've got someone from Accenture who wants to buy them for an event. You've got someone from the government of Ireland that wants to buy them for St. Patrick's Day in New York. And suddenly the inquiries just came in, and we built the business first just on inquiries coming in, and then referrals, and then a whole lot of sweat and tears and all sorts of other effort has gone into it over the last 6 years, but that's how the whole thing kicked off.
Yeah. Well, talk about some of those sweat and tears that kind of went into it. I mean, what were some of the challenges along the way? Obviously, your pop promos now, right? College glasses. I'm assuming you probably kept it, but
we decided
expanded.
We decided to rebrand from college glasses to pop promos when we had launched more products, and we're no longer just selling sunglasses, and we're no longer just selling to colleges. In fact, the majority of our business is corporate today. So the name ceased to make sense. So we rebranded. I mean, the challenges, the funniest ones, our very first office here in Philadelphia. I sold my car, flew across the country on a one-way ticket to Baltimore, helped Erin move out of her apartment, bought up a bunch of furniture, drove one way in a U-Haul to South Philadelphia. And we set up shop working on Catherine Street in Philadelphia. Our office was the ground floor living room, and we lived on the upper floors, and the basement was our shipping center. So I mean, our first year we moved over $1 million worth of product in and out of a 16-foot wide row home on Catherine Street. And the pictures we have from it are absolutely hilarious. That concept of carrying 50,000 pairs of sunglasses into a row home off the street, it was a sight for everyone.
What are all these boxes
they
going
had
into
no
that
idea
place
what we were
for?
doing. But
hopefully you didn't get any more calls from the FDA, right?
No more issues. That place was accredited by the time we moved in. So.
The paperwork all filled out.
So that's just one funny story, but over time we've grown. It's been launching new products, listening to our customers about what they want, and really focusing on making the customer experience as easy as possible. Because although we sell customized products, what people really want is to be able to get what they're looking for easily without having a headache. So that's what we focus on every day.
And one thing, as we wrap up here, that it was interesting when we talked is tons of promo items out there available in the market. How do you differentiate yourself at Pop Promos?
Yeah, so it's a fairly big business, $25 billion a year in the United States, but the vast majority of our competitors have huge warehouses full of inventory. So if you ordered sunglasses from them, the question would be, which color do you want? We have 5. You pick the color, and then you send them a logo, they print the logo, and they ship it out. But if you order sunglasses from Pop Promos, my question is, what color would you like them to be? Because we'll actually injection mold the plastic in your exact color and then decorate it in as many different logos and colors, including full color process that you can possibly dream up, package it in a custom sleeve, and then put it in a box and send it to you.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so, although instead of getting the product in a week, it takes 30 days, you get a much higher level of customization. And Coca-Cola gets their glasses in Coca-Cola red rather than whatever red is sitting on the shelf.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Sterling. This has been
pleasure.
fantastic. And Rija, thank you for joining me today. The next guest will be, on Money Matters TV, will be Rob Dover, CPA with Markham. And as a reminder, you can download the podcast from iTunes, Stitcher, as well as see our programs on our YouTube channel, Money Matters TV. Thank you for joining us for Growth Stories.